people registered. I first would like to give a very, very special thank you to Yehudis. Yehudis, thank you so much for doing this for us. It's such a warm, wonderful feeling to be connected to Eretz Yisrael. Many of us at this time of the year have been privileged to be with you in person at Kever David HaMelech or in Yerushalayim someplace. And you know what? Hashem has other plans, and this is unbelievable that we get to be with each other, connecting to our neshamas over a Zoom call, which is really, really, it's I don't even want to call it second best. It's so special. So thank you very much for being here with us today. And I want to give a very special thank you to our sponsors, and they're anonymous, but a very, very special person. And she said that this should be a schus, and we're saying it with all of our hearts and neshamas for all the people that need special, beautiful shidduchim. It should come with such ease, with such joy, and so very soon. And we should be singing and dancing together with everybody in pure ecstasy. So that is such a beautiful sponsor, and to all the other people that sponsored, thank you very, very much. And I want to give a very special thank you to Aviva Fayas, who is behind the scenes, who's not behind the scenes, working very, very hard to put all of this together for us. So thank you and welcome. And thank you to all of you that have made this possible, that we could do this today. So without further ado, Yehudis, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I think this is such a great idea. It's so beautiful to be able to see everybody, those whom I can see, those who I can't see. I know you're there. Even if I can't see you. So yeah, it's funny. This week I did an extra, I teach all week, but then I realized I normally travel to the States this time of year. Sometimes I meet with the Chizuk ladies like before or after I've gone. And I realized, why am I not doing classes also for the women who are there? Like, it's a lot easier to get up in the middle of the night a couple of nights. Now I'm not up in the middle of the night, but 2 nights this week I did. So, so it's a lot easier to get up in the middle of the night than it is to actually travel halfway around the world. So, why not do that? And Baruch Hashem, it's been so beautiful this week, like a whole bunch of extra learning together and getting to see people that I haven't seen in a while. So let's get started. So it's already Zion Adar here. It's already Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit in Eretz Yisrael. You still have a couple of hours ahead, but we're already in the time. Baruch Hashem, just about, like really just mamash now. And so Barry had asked me, in addition to talking about Adar, can you focus also on Zion Adar specifically? So Bezrat Hashem, we'll see how it all fits together. It really all does come together. Now, I don't know, I never saw it. Did you send out a flyer or you just sent out a mail, Barry? How'd you reach everybody? Not a mail, a text, whatever.
We sent out a flyer with a link, and people are still, as I'm here, they're still signing up.
People are still coming in. That's fine. So no, I'm asking because I want to know, what title did we give the class? What was the actual title? What was it? It was
Expanding the Joy of Adar.
Expanding the Joy of Adar. Okay, so Expanding the Joy of Adar. Now, so Hashem should help us that we should really be filled with a lot of joy this month, every month, always, all the time, a lot of simcha. But in the schus of the month, its nature is bemet, true, genuine joy that we should be able to draw down now in this time, joy for the whole year, enough to like open up the gateways of joy so that we can really be truly, truly happy all year long. Adar is, every month has its segula, every month has its I want to call it its realm, its dominion, because usually when you talk about the months, the source that most people rely on to draw forth lessons about the month and the nature of the month come from a work called Bnei Yissaschar. And the Bnei Yissaschar, which was written by Rav Tzvi Elimelech of Dinov, one of the Hasidic masters of about 200 years ago. So he was also drawing off of other works, and the one that is most best known is from Sefer Yetzirah. Now, Sefer Yetzirah, the Book of Formation, is a mystical work that's attributed to Avraham Avinu, and some say to Rabbi Akiva, and it's an ancient text that is very cryptic. And in its 5th chapter, it goes through 12 subsections of month by month, explaining, it doesn't explain actually, it just drops hints, drops hints about each of the months. So whenever you hear shiurim, you hear classes about the nature of the month is this, the work of the month is that, the midah, or the quality that you have to work on during this month is this, it's always going to be drawn from Sefer Yetzirah. That's really from the 5th chapter there. That's where it's coming from. And every month has an astrological sign, and every month has its name. Its name is itself significant. And every month has a letter and a tribe associated with a part of the body. And what's interesting is not all of these parts of the body are in human beings. Some people don't realize that. Some months you're like, the part of the body for this month is the korkiban. The korkiban is a crop, like birds have them. Mammals don't have them. So sometimes the part of the body, and the idea of the part of the body is like, oh, there's an organ that's associated or that best exemplifies what the nature of this work of the month is. And this month's organ is the spleen, is the tol, which is funny because, or funny, I don't want to say funny. Like when you say someone is splenetic in the old language, it's kind of like archaic language. Someone is splenetic, it means there's somebody who's like easily irritated, very easily irritated. To have spleen, to be full of spleen, because this goes back to the older physic, what they call the older physic, means the ancient ways of thinking about medicine and physiology. So it means there's like parts of the body associated with different modes, different ways of being in the world. And the spleen, so he's got spleen, it's like he's angry and annoyed. It's like annoyed. So this business of annoyance, right? Apparently its inversion, or the inversion of it, is called schok, because the quality of the month is schok. It's not simcha. You have to be careful. Last month, Shvat, everybody always says that the quality of Shvat, they like to say that it's achila, that it's eating. And that's, Tu b'Shvat and all the fruit. And yeah, but the thing is, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say eating. It says le'ita, which means gulping. See, gulping and eating, they're really talking about two different things. It's not exactly the same. So here too, it doesn't mean, it's not simcha, actually, it's tzchok. Now, tzchok is not like tzchok. Tzchok, right? Tzchok is a joke. L'tzachek means to joke. But tzchok is more like the word mischak. It's more like play, or the laughter that comes from playfulness, from being able to be playful and to delight in play. It's quite a different implication, making a joke or joking around. And schok is very lofty. Az yimalei, right? In the ultimate future, what does it say? Schok pinu. Yeah. Now that laughter is not schok. It's not like somebody told a joke and then you laugh at the punchline. Schok is like, oh, you realize the whole story is a joke. It's like the whole long tale, the whole long saga of exile. Oh, that's what it was. Oh, and really all along, the consciousness of the future world that is available to us now is we can also be in a state of schok. Now, schok doesn't mean that life is a joke. It doesn't mean that everything's funny. There are a lot of terrible things that happen. Nevertheless, to be in the state of schok is a kind of, it's an internal liberation from being always otherwise in the state of spleen, right? Meaning easily irritated and at a loss and feeling anxious, and all of those splenetic ways of being. The inversion of that is schok. I'll tell you, I woke up at 3:30 in the morning, whatever. I taught at 3:30 in the morning this week for the East Coasters. So I was teaching 3 times this week. I said, I'm going to teach the same class. We have a fundraiser next week. I'm killing myself with work. There's so much to do. So I prepared one class. I said, I'm going to teach the same material 3 times. It's 3 different groups of women, ostensibly. I don't have to make 3 classes. I can teach one class. Well, all I know is that so far I'm now into the third one. It's officially the same class, but I'm never teaching the same thing. It doesn't turn out to be the same thing at all. So when I got up for the second time to on whatever it was in the middle of the night on Tuesday, so I got up to teach the class. And when I got up, I had to wash up. I had to say brachas. I need to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom, and I tried to turn on hot water. That was the night that we had a lot of cold, cold descended on Yerushalayim. And I turn on the hot water, and it's like a trickle. It's a trickle. So I was like, oh, I wonder what happened, Do I have exploded pipes? Did my dude fly off the roof? Who knows what happened? Julie's like, what? Yeah. So the most likely thing was either, I said it couldn't be that the pipe froze. We have our hot water heaters. This is Israel. So we keep the electric hot water heaters on the roof, because usually the weather doesn't get that cold. And if it goes below freezing, so you're sort of supposed to leave the water running a trickle, all night long, so that the pipes don't freeze up because everything's exposed. And I said, oh, I forgot to leave it open. I guess something must have happened, right? So I got myself together, and I sit down, and I'm getting ready to teach this class, and I you could be preoccupied about maybe the dude flew off the roof, right? I mean, maybe it's a dude. The dude is the big tank, 200 liters or whatever it is. Yeah, attached to the solar panels and everything. You know how it is in Israel. So, or maybe not, but that's how it is. I mentioned to the ladies, I was like, I wonder if my dude flew off the roof. And they were also in a state of shock. They're like, you're not worried? And I said, no, I'm not worried. Either it flew off the roof, let's be honest, right? Either something happened or something didn't happen, and there's some weird reason why my water is trickling, is a trickle, okay? So either something happened or it didn't happen. Now, if nothing happened, could be nothing happened, right? Could be there's some reasonable explanation that I'm just not aware of as to why my water is running this way. If I will expend an iota of emotional energy on worry or being angry or something like that about something that I don't even have facts about, what a total waste if it turns out to be a nothing, correct? Total waste. So, and if it turns out to be a something, will my being upset about it actually make anything better? What have I gained if I'm going to get upset? So I tried to convey this to the group of women, and they were like, aren't you curious if it flew off the roof? So I'm not going out in the freezing weather to go see if the thing blew off the roof. My only hope is that Baruch Hashem, it happened in the middle of the night, and if it fell off the roof, it didn't fall on anyone. So that was that. Now, then the next day, my husband goes out to learn at night. So when I caught up with him the next day, I said, the water on the hot water is running like a trickle. Did you notice? So he's like, oh yeah. I said, why? He goes, yeah, I started when I go out at night to go learn, I'm shutting off the hot water. When I leave, I shut off the hot water, like the main, because we have a little leak in one of the pipes down below near the porch, and I don't want it to run, for no reason. So when I leave at night, I shut it down. I was like, oh, okay, thanks for telling me. Now, had I expended any energy on this, right? So afterwards, I would have felt a fool. Why? Because I would have exercised my spleen instead of exercising my schok. You understand? My capacity to make a joke out of something, to say, this is a nothing, so what? So to literally make a joke at 3:30 in the morning, at least it happened now and no one's on the street and hopefully nobody got hit by it. So, to be able to be misacheket with it, to play with it, instead of it being something that weighs me down and is harmful for me, and that I could be tense about it and hurt myself, hurt other people. So that's Adar. That's Adar. To have the capacity to do that. That's why we call the class the expansive joy of Adar. Adar is not stam joy. Adar is like special joy vitamins, inoculations, vaccines for the whole year, because it's the joy that's available, that it's the joy that can expand into the realms where normally you would not be joyful. You see, to be happy about things that are easy and good and wonderful. It's not a chiddush. You don't need special inoculations for that. That's just fine. You can just manage with that because it's natural to be happy when things are happy. Adar is not like that at all. Really, the potential for Adar joy is much, much deeper than people realize because we associate Adar with like it's Purim and it's a happy time. Purim is not a happy story. Purim is a scary, potentially catastrophic tragedy that is averted at the last moment by the slimmest of margins, and not even completely. And the heroine winds up never escaping from the place that she had to go to be able to be a part of the drama and the heroism, right? So Purim is very, very fraught. It's not like it's a, it's a v'nahafuchu, right? Purim's delight is v'nahafuchu, is that it's a story of reversal, right? That it became, what do we say in the piyut? Miyagon l'simcha me'evel yom tov, from dismay to joy, from mourning to a festival. That's Adar. That's Purim. Meaning Purim can be what it is because Adar, that's what it is. So Adar, you go back. What's the name Adar? So most people are familiar with the fact that Adar is Aleph Dar, right? Aleph Dar. So Aleph is representative of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? And I have a student with whom, Chavrusa, a student that I learned right now, we're learning a very powerful work by Rav Kook. All my life, I'm like 49 years old. My whole life long, I never learned a word of Rav Kook. Mamash. That was just like the world that I came from. People didn't touch Rav Kook's work. And not that he's not a tzaddik, always a tzaddik. Yes, always such a big tzaddik, but I didn't come from an environment where that was encouraged. And over the last 2-3 years, because of Shiviti, and I have more students who are interested in Rav Kook's work, so I wound up being more involved with his teachings. And so I have this book that I love. It's a very small pamphlet called Reish Milin, which is his teachings on the mysteries of Lashon HaKodesh, of the Hebrew language. And it's magnificent. It's magnificent. And his whole way of teaching is magnificent because his language is very, very hard to understand. I mean, it's not easy to understand his language at all. And if you're not familiar with Chassidut, so then it's very, very hard to understand what he's saying. But if you have enough of a place to begin with, so then there's a lot to be gained. In any case, so we're working through certain things having to do with Lashon HaKodesh, with Hebrew, and we're learning the Aleph, So it's like, what's the Aleph? The Aleph is or, right? Or, light, big light. And even the form of the Aleph, what is it? It's like this, it's got this explosion out in two directions, right? Like the two Yuds and the Vav, right? Two Yuds and the Vav that bridges them, yeah? And they're all, boom, and they explode outward. And so Aleph is it's huge and it's ever expansive. That's what Aleph wants to do. So it means that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Alufo Shel Olam, the master and the aloof one and the lofty one of the universe, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, Dar, he wants to come and dwell down here with us. And everybody always quotes the very famous Medrash Tanchuma, it's very well known, Hitaveh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu hitaveh Hashem wanted that there should be for him, that he should have for himself, a dwelling place down in the lower worlds. Now, when we think about down in the lower worlds, right, we're used to thinking of that kind of abstractly. Like down in the lower worlds means here in the physical realm. And that's true. It's absolutely true. That the creation of the universe, its root is, its foundational principle is Adar, is Hashem, God, the infinite one, wanted to have a home, a place made for him down here in this world, which is in the physical realm, which is what we do, right? We do that. We do that by living our physical lives down here in the physical realm with consciousness of God. That's called Dira B'Tachtonim, that he has a home down here in the lower worlds via the drawing down of God consciousness into everyday things. You make a bracha on a cup of water, you pray and you articulate your speech, you get up and when you go shopping and you need to buy a coat, you check in the label to see that it's made out of wool and not out of a mixture of linen and wool, right? So all of these things are down here worldly things. And you get to do this work all year long. It's not 1 month a year, right? Every month, every minute of every day of every year, what are we doing? The work of Adar. Aleph Dar, to make a home for Hashem down here. But see, the idea of Dira B'Tachtonim, of having a home, that Hashem should have a home in the lower worlds. So aside from that abstraction of calling the entirety of physical existence the lower worlds, right? The lower world. But every individual also has a whole realm in their own life that's called the lower world. Meaning we all are down here in the lower world. And then everybody also has a whole, I'll call it like the cellar of your life. The cellar, like cellar, yes? The place, I don't even want to say the basement, because people make their basement so nice, like you could have a whole simcha in the basement. So let's say like below the basement, like where it's dark and dingy and there's cobwebs and there's like, there could be, like worms down there, the cellar. Yes. Okay. It's dirt floor. No one wants to go down there. It's dark. It's scary. Okay. Not your basement, because your basement's probably really nice. So I can't even say the basement. Now, I don't know. We had like a basement. I grew up in Canarsie, and we had, we lived in a 2-family house. So we had a tenant down below, Minnie. She was such a sweet woman. And then below her apartment, we had the basement. And you had to go outside the house to get to the basement. Anybody remember those? Am I the only person who grew up in like that part of the world? So you go outside the house and you go down under the ground, and then you're in the basement. And that place was scary. It was scary. And the washing machine was down there. Every time we had to do a load of wash, we had to wash and dry the clothes. My poor mother, I didn't start doing the laundry until after we had moved out of Brooklyn. But when we were kids, she schlepped all that wash out in the snow, in the sleet. It had to go out of the house, down to the basement and up again. Anyway, and I was only born in 1972. I wasn't like born in the 30s or something, So, okay, so we'll call it the cellar, not the basement, because the basement is deceptive. So I want you to know something. The other night I taught, I was never thinking of the Dira B'Tachtonim exactly with the metaphor of the cellar, the basement. I was thinking of it and teaching about it using another metaphor. And somehow on Tuesday night, while I was teaching, the word that came to my mouth was the basement and the cellar. Now, you see, you should understand how close is the hashgacha, how careful is the providence, because I had never used that metaphor before. After I taught the class, a woman got in touch with me. I saw that she had been there with her daughter, who's maybe 10 years old, 9 or 10. So she had sat in that class that evening. Her daughter sat with her. And the daughter stayed, and she stayed to listen to the whole thing. She was there the whole hour. And at a certain point, I saw that her daughter and she got very animated. But because they were muted out, I didn't know what was going on. And she wrote to me afterwards, and she said, I can't believe what hashgacha, what incredible providence that you used the metaphor of the cellar or the basement, because they had a tragedy take place in the family recently, like in the last year. And something very traumatic took place in the basement. And since then, this young girl has not wanted to go down to the basement because she witnessed something that was very horrifying and very scary to her in the basement. And when I was talking in the class about how HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he comes and he lives down in the basement with you. He wants that the cellar and the basement should be, it looks like it's scary and it looks like it's dark, but it's actually filled with light. And it's the place where you can bring so much simcha. And I didn't realize until afterwards, why were her eyes wide open and why was she so animated? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu had put a metaphor into my mouth that I hadn't even considered before, but spontaneously that's what came out. And it was because she needed to hear the word. Anyway, she said it's like that's all she can talk about since the other day, that the basement is okay and the cellar is okay and Hashem is also there and she's not afraid and she can go down to the basement. Now, so what's the basement? I don't want to say the basement, right? The cellar. Let's call it the cellar. So this area of the cellar is the place where everybody has the places where even when things are good and we're very happy and we should be happy because stuff is good, there's some place that's kind of locked away where the light does not shine and the joy does not penetrate because it doesn't come to the party. That part doesn't come to the party. And it's called tachtonim. For every individual, that's called the lower place, the basement, the sub-basement, the cellar. And to that place, Adar opens a new window so that joy can penetrate also to that place, because that's what Adar is. Adar has the nature of drawing simcha, of drawing joy, also down to such places. And it's exemplified in Purim by being able to do all kinds of things that normally you wouldn't do. You dress up and you're silly and adilu yada and you drink and all kinds of things where you normally have a lot of boundaries and a lot of containment, right? All year long, there's a lot of containment. Somehow Purim breaks through all of this. And the idea of breaking through the normal places of containment is so that the joy should expand sufficiently that it penetrates also to the place where you normally can't get joy to reach. That's where it has to go to. Now, it doesn't mean you have to get like completely, it's not about drinking, you understand? It's not about getting drunk. It's not about losing, it's not about a kind of outward breaking of boundaries necessarily. I mean, it can take that form, but it's not really about that. It's about shining the light of Hashem's presence also to the place where you think it normally, even when we're not articulating this to ourselves, where normally it doesn't penetrate because really we don't allow it to penetrate there. And it's like if you know, everybody wants to have, I don't want to say everybody, I can't like, you know, accuse anybody of having the moral failings that I do, but let's say, you know, like most people like to keep their little hidey hole where they could go, like when they're feeling, you know, not quite happy with things and not want to have some little place where they can go to brood, you know, like go kind of, you know, pull the covers over your head and here, just let me just be annoyed right now. Let me be splenetic right now. Let me just be irritable and angry and upset and just leave me be to be that. Okay. I want to keep a corner where that gets to be my private place where I can just be unhappy. I hate to put it that way, but you know, it's okay. We're all together in this. It's understandable. You know, it's human. It's human. So Adar comes and HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us, 1 second. You thought you're going to have, right? What, you have some hideaway place where you can go where I'm not? There's no hideaway place you can go where I'm not. Not in the sense of being perpetually observed, not in the sense of building Yirat Shamayim, you know, a fear of heaven, awe of God, but in the sense of there's no place that you are where I am not. There is no place that you can be where I am not. So if you want to put your hands over your face and say, you know, you can't see me or you're not here, it's only because you're choosing to put your hands over your eyes and not to see. But Adar comes and Hashem says, take your hands away from your eyes, please, and pay attention to the fact, here I am, here I am, here I am. And where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, oz v'chedva bimkomo. Strength and delight is in the place where he is. If he's here with me and I'm here with him and I let him in, it doesn't really matter what's happening because oz v'chedva is still there. You know, this is the kind of thing that, you know, we ask ourselves, what? There's no time that I'm ever going to be sad. Sometimes it's not appropriate to feel bad. And the answer is yes, but the core of simcha is still there. It still needs to be there. The core of joy, that is the vital force of Hashem providing us with life and vitality wherever we go, wherever we are. It behooves us to be aware that it's still filling us, you know. It's still filling us no matter what. Like I have so many, the experience of having lost my father, Zichrono Livracha, and having had a year of after his passing, and then coming out of that year in you know, in Kislev. So it's always with me. Like those last moments with him, the last days with him, it's always with me. It doesn't go away. And on the one hand, it's like, what's more painful and what's more where is there more loss and where is there more sadness than in those moments when his neshama left his body, and then I lost him in the guf, right? I lost him in the body. He's no longer here to be with us in the body. And so those moments were the worst of all moments. And yet my sister and I, like we still every so often we just go through it again and again about what it felt like when the Shekhinah came into the room to take him. How we both felt it at the same time. It was something that was so, it was not only a moment of awe, but it was also a moment, even in great tragedy, of such a deep, I can't say it except by saying of also such deep, the deepest of deep joys, to be in that place at that moment, even as it was the greatest. It was so much yira and so much awe and so much loss, and also through it all. But the Shekhinah is here. The Shekhinah Kedosha is here, and we felt it very, very strongly. So there is no place where he's not. And in Adar, we come back again to the awareness again and again and ever deeper, again and again and again, that there's no place where he is not there, and that Hashem's light is so adir. Adir b'maram Hashem. Adir, it's huge, it's prodigious, it's magnificent, it's powerful. Adir is such a big word. It's not just aleph dar, it's adir, it's big. And it's so big that it goes down, 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 also to reach the bottommost places. Now, Zayin Adar. So here we are, it's Zayin Adar. Now it's the 7th of Adar, which is Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit. Haman, Yimach Shemo v'Zichro, Haman did, he cast lots, right? He came upon the dates, he came upon the date for to enact this terribly destructive plan, and the sages taught that he should have succeeded. Why should he have succeeded? Why should he have succeeded? Because according to the strict rules, we deserved destruction. It says that Oto Hador, the Jewish people of that generation, really didn't have merit for continued existence. They were worthy of kilaya, that's what it says, of destruction, complete destruction. So it means, like, based on the rules, on the normal boundaries of things. And you say, what did we do that was so terrible? Well, it wasn't really only from that time. What would happen was, before the Persian Median Empire, there was the Babylonian Empire. So Persian Media was just like a kind of stretching out and extension of that original galut, to that original exile from Eretz Yisrael at the time of the destruction of the first temple. Now, during that first exile, which was the Babylonian exile, so there was a very big event had taken place in Bavel, in a place called Bikat Dura, which is the Dura Valley, which still shows up in the news every so often. And the Dura Valley was, and it's no wonder that there's so much oil there, because it says that all of the bodies of those who perished in the flood wound up in Iraq. And that's why there's so much oil, it's all decayed matter. So the, petroleum is decayed organic matter, right? So there's an awful lot of decayed organic matter in that whole basin, the whole basin there. So the Jewish people, collectively, with rare exception, it was only 3 people stood up against the tide. And in Bikas Dura, the entire Jewish people were assembled to show allegiance and obedience to Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor of Bavel, and everyone bowed down. Everyone bowed to a very big statue made out of gold in a human form. And the sages taught in the Talmud, they taught that generation had a very, very big heavenly accusation against it, because they did such an act of, like this obsequious bowing before the idol. And even if they didn't mean for it to be an act of idolatry, it sure looks like one. And so that generation the Jewish people had like half of a decree against them. But it wasn't defined. Why? Because maybe they only did it for political expedience. Maybe nobody had the intention of actually like bowing down. It's idolatry. So KDS, who didn't bow down? So they're very famous. If you learn the book of Daniel, this is one of the reasons why this is such an important book to know, is in Sefer Daniel, we learn about the three young exiles named Hananya, Mishael, and Azaria. And they had, Hananya, Mishael, and Azaria had also interesting Bavli names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They had three names in Babylonian also. And they stood up, and it says they stood up, Tzadika Tamar Yifrach, they stood up like palm trees in the desert. Everyone's laid out flat on their faces, completely prostrate. And then you have these three young men who stand up and they say, no, this we won't do. So they gathered them, they took them and arrested them and threw them in the fiery furnace. And that's the whole story of how they were saved from the fiery furnace. A great miracle was done for them. Hananya, Mishael, and Azaria. Now, so that generation, because they didn't intend it to be an act of idolatry, but it sure looks like an act of idolatry. It's a very interesting discussion, the Gemara there, also a very interesting Tosfos. So it got pushed off. Meaning it's sort of like when someone makes a mistake, or it's not one person, you're talking about a whole nation of men, women, and children. When that big an error is made, but it's a question mark as to whether that was really the intention. So it got pushed off. And the din wasn't sealed until when? Until Achashverosh made his whole big party and everybody ate, and they ate from Su'udah Shaloto Rasha, from that wicked man's feast. And so then it says in the Talmud, then the decree went down, because it means that it was like we had another chance. We really, really needed to prove that our time in exile, we were sort of shaken by the experience of exile enough to realize, oh, there are certain things we need to correct here. We can't just go with the flow. You can't just follow whatever anybody tells you to do. And if they tell you to bow down and you think it's expedient, so who says that you need to do it? And if he invites you to the Seudah, does it mean you have to go and eat it even though it's kosher l'mahadrin? No, being in exile means that you must create the whole tikkun to fix. Being in exile means you must define yourselves in your core of your Judaism and run against the tide, not to succumb, right? So that second act of succumbing, that was like, oh, finished. So according to the rules, the Talmud tells us that there was no moment as dangerous for the entirety of the Jewish people as there was at the time when Achashverosh gave his signet ring over to Haman to do what he wanted to do with the Jewish people. This was considered to be the most dangerous moment ever. Why? Because the realm of Achashverosh was so very, very broad. It was an earth and a world encompassing empire that there was no Jews living outside of his realm. So, the Jewish people had been through a lot, right? We've been through so much. And when we were persecuted in Christian Europe, so we had some relief in the Muslim lands. And when we had a Holocaust in Europe, so we had Jews in America. And meaning we haven't even in Byzantine times, when the Byzantines controlled Eretz Yisrael, but there were Jews living in Bavel, they were living in Iraq, and they were doing very, very well. So we have always this kind of balance that someplace, somewhere, the Jewish people are doing okay. In that time, everybody would have been affected by this decree. There was really no place there was no place where Jews were living that was not under the dominion of Achashverosh. And for this reason, it was exceedingly dangerous. Now, so we have here this idea of the rules, right? There are rules. And when you break the rules, so, rules are there for a reason, right? Boundaries are there for a reason. And they're not meant to be broken. But let's think about, like, when you have a child who breaks rules. So when children break rules, parents, let's say all of us who have like raised teenagers and beyond, yeah? So, or maybe you just say, I was a teenager once upon a time too. So let's say that. So you say, okay, there is a certain amount of rule breaking where the response, we'll say the normative response is, if you broke this rule, you need to pay, right? We'll say that's like a kind of this worldly normal. That's why there are rules, right? Rules are there in order to create a system by which they can be enforced. It's an enforcement of some kind of a standard. Now, for anybody who has been in the situation where you have such an abrogation of rules, where you are at risk of losing the one that has broken the rules, what do you do then? Right? Isn't this a present, like a clear and present question for a lot of people? A lot of people have to deal with this question. It could be with children who are disillusioned and disenchanted with their Yiddishkeit, and they're not, and they're flaunting rules. Or it can even be in kind of like in more prosaic, leave religious things out of it. It can also be seen in more prosaic conditions. Like you can have a relationship with someone where, like, there are all these petty violations back and forth. You know, relationships can get into trouble. So there's petty violations back and forth. And then, and that's hard. And it's like, oh, you know, you did this and now this is my response and this is how you need to be, you know, petty violations back and forth. And then chas v'shalom, there's like something really big happens. Like somebody gets sick, yeah. And it turns out in the end that all these petty violations, one should hope, yeah, this is in a situation where there's real love at the root, where there's real love at the root. So the petty violations become insignificant because there's a danger of loss, of permanent loss even, that so overrides the sense of rule breaking has taken place, something's not right, some inner quality of some inner quality of love, attachment, closeness, it emerges. It starts to emerge. It has an opportunity to emerge. Now, Purim is like that for us. You know, that's really the Purim story in its heart, is that according to all of the rules, in all of the structure, the Jewish people don't have a zchut kiyum. The Jewish people really can't last, can't survive. But because we're in such terrible danger, so now something else comes forward in our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that's more internal. It means the inner love that he has for us, the beyond the rules, the within, the unconditional love that he has for us, the non-transactional love that he has for us. That at the point of almost doom, right, at the catastrophic point, all of a sudden that bursts forth. So when we think about Purim and its breaking of boundaries, like its ability to expand and the joy of Adar that can expand and expand, well, that's because Purim in its essence, something came out during Purim, some deeper inner vitality of connection and love, joy and love. It's the very breakage of the standards, of the norms, the violation, we'll call it, I don't want to call it petty violations, but the rule breaking, right? And the result of that, which is almost destruction. So something else burst forth, which is called ad delo yada, what we call the thing that is beyond understanding, the thing that is beyond knowing, the thing that with all of the drinking of Purim, and it's just meant to get us to draw forth from inside of ourselves the fact that there is a higher love and a higher joy and a higher connection that's deeply hidden most of the time, that's not accessible to us most of the time. And somehow on Purim, it becomes accessible. It goes from a hidden state to a revealed state. And so I remember when I was in seminary, I had one of the girls in Sem, her father was diabetic. He developed type 2 diabetes. And when she says, I remember, it was before Purim, she said, I remember the last time my father drank alcohol, because after he was diagnosed, he never touched alcohol again. So yeah, alcohol is like really, really bad for a diabetic. So he never drank alcohol again. So she said, I remember the last Purim. We were then like 19, 20, whatever it is. We were in Sem. And she said, I remember the very last Purim that he drank. He's also very creative, very loving soul, big neshama. Anyway, so she said, she grew up in Borough Park. She said, I was 8 years old and we were sitting at the table, and it's crazy, right? That's Purim. Purim is, Why? It's like there's so many people are in and out, and well, now this year I don't know, but okay, in, out, balagan. You have to run and do shalach manas, and you have to make a suda, and you have to you have to hear Megillah. There's so many things to do, rules and rules and rules. And guess what? If you try to be within the mizgeret, like to keep everything nice and neat and packaged away on Purim, that's a recipe for like a nervous breakdown. Just let go. Purim is a breaking of boundaries. That's what it's supposed to be. Like it's sort of like you're sitting at the table, and normally on a regular Shabbos, if there was this much sticky, disgusting stuff getting spilled all over the floor, all over the table, I would really be uncomfortable. On Purim, I must learn to say, we will deal with it some other time. We will take care of this at some other time. So why? Because there is a kind of breaking of the boundary, and the breaking and that breaking of the boundary, Purim, there's something welcome in the breaking of the boundary. You must be able to welcome it, because there's good stuff that happens in the breaking of this boundary. Now, so this friend of mine, when she said, I remember the last time my father drank, we were sitting at the table, and there was like, who knows how many dozens of people at the table. And my father was drunk as a lord, as they used to say. He was drunk as can be. And she came from a nice big family, and there was married siblings who were there, and the kids and cousins. And she says, all of a sudden, my father, in the middle of the Suda, he was so drunk, he slams on the table, boom, gets everybody's attention because it's all really noisy. There's music and everyone's excited, and there's a lot of noise. Boom, everyone looks up. What's going on? So he says, he gets up and he goes, you know what we're going to do right now? And everyone's like, no, what are we going to do? And he says, we are going to the nursing home. Let's go. And like 30 people, the whole 35 people, they get up. He was drunk as can be. And they went over to the nursing home, which is local to where they were in Borough Park. And they went to go make a visit to everybody who didn't have a lot of visitors, and to go make people sameach, to go make people happy. And she said, to me, this is the Adaloyada, right? 8 years old, I saw what happened to my father when he was really like gone. He was so drunk. What came out from him? What am I going to do with this? What am I going to do? I'm going to go, and I'm going to share, and I'm going to spread, and I'm going to make people happy. And so the Adaloyada, everybody I'm sure can come up with examples, living examples from your own experience of the ways in which on Purim you've seen or you have felt, right, in yourself or in your experience with other people, where something that was normally like suppressed inside, locked in, and the drinking, or just even the environment of Purim, just kind of, it burst out. And when that happens, what you're witnessing is Adar's power, is the Adir, the awesome power of Adar to break boundaries and bring simcha and connection and joy and love, deep, deep love, out of its, like to break out of its normal place and reach to places that it normally can't go. Now, okay, so let's go back to our Sefer Yetzirah. I didn't talk about Moshe Rabbeinu. So here, Haman Harasha, Yemach Shemo v'zichro. So he threw pur, right? He cast lots. Now, even though it says pur, it means singular, but it's not singular. It was really two lots, two sets of either tabs or papers or tokens, however they were done, one with months and one with days of the year, of the solar year, meaning numbers. 1 through 365 was one set, and months named one, the names of the months. Whether it was names or whether it was numbers, I'm not sure. I think it was numbers. In any case, so the question is whether there were 12 or 13. Now, the Gemara, the Talmud Yerushalmi, says that in the year that the miracle took place, there was 2 Adars, and it took place in the second one. And so it wasn't. So how do we know that? Because it says that the month that showed up was what? It says Chodesh Shnei Masar Hu Chodesh Adar, right? The 12th month, what fell out was the 12th month. Hu Chodesh Adar, that's Chodesh Adar, that's the month of Adar. So the Gemara says Hu Chodesh Adar, the fact that the Megillah tells us a second time what the month is If it had only meant to tell us that it's Adar, it would have just said it was the 12th month. Here we get very Gemaric. But if it says Hu Chodesh Adar, what does it mean to say? There's another one that's like the 12th, and that's also Adar. It's Adar the Bet, the second one, okay? So this second month of Adar, even the fact of Adar, think about this. When we have to make a leap year, you know, we add a month. So this added month is something that's completely, it's completely not normal, you know? We're so used to it. We're so used to some years having a second Adar and most years not having a second Adar. And it seems to us because we're Jewish, it's like it's natural. Some years you have an Iber, some years you don't, right? But it's really not natural at all, because when it comes to things that are of this world, like let's say February gets another day once every 4 years, correct? A day. Okay, because the solar year is like, it's not exact. There's like a quarter there. You know, you got a quarter day that kind of gets swallowed up. And every 4 years, it needs to have a minor readjustment. Fine, okay, we could live with that. But you just get to add a month? Who adds a month into their year? Only Jews add a month into their year. The only reason why is because the Kadosh Baruch Hu commanded us that the Pesach holiday has to come out in the spring. So we have to have a mechanism by which months and years can be reconciled, and everyone knows this. And that's why we have the ability to add another month, and it's called Sod HaIbur. Sod HaIbur. Now, Sod HaIbur literally means the mystery of gestation. It's literally what it means, because Ibur means gestation, pregnancy. It's called the mystery of gestation. Now, gestation, the whole concept of gestation is as follows. Gestation in a spiritual sense means there's times when there's a lot that's cooking on the inside, but you don't see it on the outside. But so much is going on, right? That's called pregnancy. So much is going on the inside. Every time I have a student who's like, shlom bayis issues and stuff like this during pregnancy and the first baby especially, I always talk to the husbands. I'm like, listen, your wife is tired because her body is working like a furnace 24 hours a day to make a human. Okay, just bear that in mind. Her body is working 24 hours a day while she's awake and while she's asleep to make a human being. Just bear that in mind. That's why she's tired. Okay, so that's why she's crabby. Anyway, so but it really, the whole idea of the Ibur, right, this gestation period, is that there are times or situations where on the outside it looks like nothing is happening. I know, we can see from the outside. Except actually, we only see from the outside because we already know. Because I remember when our youngest child, he was like a pretty big boy. My oldest daughter was then pregnant, like about to give birth. And he pulled me aside after Shabbos. She came for Shabbos, and they came for Shabbos, and he comes over to me. He's like, Mama. I said, what? He goes, I have a feeling. I think maybe that Fahey might be having she might have a baby at some time. And I was like, yeah, you think so? You think? It was huge. Mm-hmm. It's like, I think, what do you think? Because, people start, I feel like, it's like, oh, yeah. Okay, so, you know something's going on. But the truth is that the matzav, the situation of Ibur, of pregnancy, is one where everything that's really important is happening on the inside. And it's really something wondrous that's happening on the inside. But what goes along with it is also a lot of things that are not that easy, right? The things, it's actually like, in terms of the actuality of having to be in that state, there's a lot of stuff that's really not so easy about that state. So it's an occluded state where there's something fantastic that's going to emerge. However, at this point in time, it actually doesn't feel quite that fantastic at this moment in time. And that's the state of Ibur. That's what it means to be in a gestated state. So when you make a Shnat Ibur, when you add that extra Adar, so Adar, it's not like a great month to begin with. When Haman rolled the dice, so to speak, and hit Adar, he was very, very happy because he said Adar is a terrible month for the Jewish people. Why? It's the month that Moshe Rabbeinu died. And it turned out to be actually the opposite, right? is a perfect month for salvation of the Jewish people because it's the time of the expansion of joy and simcha, of love and connection into places where they normally can't go. So what does it have to do with Moshe Rabbeinu's Yurtzeit? Let me ask you a question. We believe, yes or no, that tzaddikim, after they pass away, they're in a greater state or they're in a lesser state than they were in their lifetimes? What do the sages say? A tzaddik is better, right? Greater, right? Gdolim tzaddikim b'mitatam yoter mi b'chayehem. After their death, they're greater than they were before they passed away. Now, if you're not the Jewish recipient of this tradition, if you're just a this worldly person, Haman he's completely a this worldly person. So when he sees, oh, the month that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, what is that? That's a perfect time to pounce on the Jewish people, because if you don't have the externality of leadership, so then like it's gone, it's finished. Is that true? Have we lost Moshe Rabbeinu? What is Moshe Rabbeinu doing since he left this physical plane? The sages taught he's buried where he's buried, Mul Beit Peor, across from the idolatrous worship place called Beit Peor in Arvot Moav, on the other side of the Yarden. Why is he buried there? Because every year there's a resurgence of the terrible idolatry of Beit Peor, of Baal Peor. And every year Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, when Baal Peor resurges, it's a spiritual force of negativity. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says, he rises out of his grave and he slams it back down. That's what he does. And the Ramchal taught in one of his books that was actually, it was hidden, one of the books in Geniza, it's not widely published. We have rediscoveries of some of his writings, because he was, the Ramchal, the great Ramchal, many of his works were burnt, and he was put into he was not excommunicated, but the sages of his time in Europe were worried about him. So a lot of his works were burnt. In any case, we've had resurgence of discovery of his works. And in one of them, he says, what is Moshe Rabbeinu doing? He says, Moshe Rabbeinu, Mashiach, will bring the exiles who are alive to Eretz Yisrael from Chutzayitz. He will bring the exiles who are alive. He'll bring them into the land. Moshe Rabbeinu will lead the dead back to Eretz Yisrael. It means to say, his role has not finished at all. Moshe Rabbeinu, Ma shehaya hu sheyiyeh. That's what it says in Kohelet, that which was will be. Ma shehaya hu. Roshei Tevot, Ma, the word Ma, that which, Shehaya, which was, who will be, Hu Sheyiyeh. That's what Shlomo HaMelech said. That which was will be. If you take the acronym of the initials of that phrase, what do you have? Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu is still working exceedingly hard on behalf of the Jewish people. He never stopped. Quite the contrary. After he left this world, he worked even harder on behalf of the Jewish people in order to bring us and help to bring us in the spiritual realm, to help to continue to lead us and teach us and bring us all the places where we need to go in order until we finally come to the final redemption. So a Haman cannot grasp this, that it's possible for something to look so dead on the outside, but on the inside that it's so alive. On the inside, in its deepest inner place, that it's alive and thriving and well. And a Haman only sees on the outside. The Jewish people broke the rules. Yesh no'am echad. Sometimes I get a little dramatic. Yesh no'am echad. Mefuzal mufurad ben ha'amim. We have no Persians here. You have someone, there's no, what's his accusation against the Jewish people? Yesheni min ha-mitzvot. There's a people here who lives among us, he says to Achashverosh. Yesheni min ha-yeshna mechad mefurad. They're separated and divided. They hate each other. They don't get along. And guess what? He's alluding to the fact that yesheni min ha-mitzvot, that they're asleep, that they're walking zombies, that they don't have life in their, no vitality in their Yiddishkeit. They don't feel, they don't think, they don't. That's what his accusation is. And guess what? From the outside, was it true? From the outside, was it true? Yes. Yes, it was. Does he tell the truth on what the outside looks like? Yes. Does he understand that inside there's something else? That's Adar. Inside there's something else to be very, very happy about. Inside there's life. Inside there's vitality. And that he misses, that he doesn't know. So Moshe Rabbeinu's Yurtzeit, it's a hilula. What happens on the Rebbe Shimon's Yahrzeit? It's like the biggest party ever, right? It's the most wonderful, biggest party ever. So what does it mean that you can have an externality that appears to be completely dead? And that's also, you're having these big storms all over the United States. The Shem Shmuel says, it's like the coldest weather we've had all year. The Shem Shmuel says it's always cold in Adar. In Yerushalayim, it's always rainy and cold and cloudy on Purim. That's just the rule. It's the rule. In fact, they say in the name of Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld that he prayed that it should always be on Shushan Purim, rainy and cold and cloudy. Why? Because he didn't want Yerushalayim to be like Lahavdil. What's the Burning Man or Coachella, or it shouldn't be like a festival where people are just like doing things that are, it's like, oh, it's gorgeous and beautiful out and we'll go hang out in the streets and a lot of pritzut, it shouldn't be so unseemly behavior. Keep people indoors. So you look at the externality of it: cold, rainy, snowy, if you're in the snow, yeah. And you say, this is the high point of joy of the year. Yeah, because in the inside of it, it's Adar. Because the whole point is to be so warm that when it's freezing cold, that you're burning up with life and vitality. That's the point. And it's so, and what is joy? Joy is not when it's like everything is great. Joy is not Nissan. Am I going already over time? We started a few minutes late. Do you have someone speaking after me?
No, keep on going. Whoever, just please keep on going.
Because maybe I'm going over time.
You're great. This is so great. And whoever has to leave can listen to the recording, but this is a big treat.
Okay, so I'll tell you, I'll just add a few other points. Now, that idea of the second Adar, so it's like you get to the end of the year, because Adar is the last month of the year, correct? If you count biblically, so the months don't start in Tishrei, they start in Nisan, correct? We have different ways of calculating the new year. There's 4 different New Years in the year. Now, we're used to thinking of Rosh Hashanah as being in Tishrei. It's true for a certain aspect of the cycle of the years. It starts from Tishrei. However, when it comes to the biblical year and the cycle of festivals of the year, it starts in Nisan. Now, so that means that Adar is the tail end of the year. It's like the point at which it's depleted. There's nothing left in the bank account. Everything is finished. The budget is dead. Like here, I don't know how it works in the United States, but I should know, but I don't remember. But here in Israel, it's like you have to pass the budget every year. And they can fight over the budget for months and months and months. So when you come to the end of the fiscal year and you're still fighting over the budget and you haven't passed the budget, it's like there's no money in the bank, because until the government releases the money to all of the to all departments, it's like there's nothing in the kuppah, nothing there. So Adar is the point where you hit the trough of the year. It's really the trough of the year in terms of the biblical year, right? So you've hit the trough of the year, there's nothing left. And then guess what? Adar has in it, hiding inside of it, not 1 month, but 2. Meaning it's such a big month. Like if you're looking at the big full moon of it, it's like they're superimposed. And then every once in a while, you get to see, oh, Adar has so much in it. Someone asked, Tishrei is the world as a whole. Nisan is for Bnei Israel. Nisan, it says, the first of Nisan is Rosh Hashanah Lamlachim, is how you count kingly years. So it's true. HaChodesh hazeh lachem Roshei Chodeshim. It says in Parshat Bo, right, that this month, Nisan, was given to the Jewish people in order to be the beginning first month of our own personal calculated year. It's true. But so it has also to do with calculating the years of kings, which means genuine Jewish leadership. So we have this Adar is like the trough, and then all of a sudden it can make a second month. There's a second month. And that second month, when Haman threw the poor, it showed up in the second Adar. And Hashem filled his mind with foolishness, because he was really a great sorcerer. He really was. The Arizal said that Amalekim were experts. And so it's something that he should have realized he was making a mistake. That rejoicing over that month of Adar and seeing it as a successful casting of the lots, because on one level it was, because the 2 sets of lots had to match. It means that he rolled a day, he pulled a day, which is a numeric day, and he also pulled a month. And on the very first go, they matched. When I say they matched, it's like then if you count from the 1st of Nisan through the entirety of the year, so
I'm throwing it out. I'm getting a new one. I think it's
the
really
number
old.
had to match. The number had to match that it could be falling out in that month. Like let's say if it had been Nisan, so the number would have had to have been 1 through 30, correct? If he had pulled 45 and the month pulled was Nisan, so then it would have been a poor casting. Yes? So the good omen of it for him was that on the very first go, the month matched the day. The day and the month matched. Now, when it matched, it should have given him pause, right? It ought to have given him pause because that month is not a natural month. There's no mazel of the 13th of Adar, of the 13th month of the year. There is no 13th month of the year. There's only a 13th month because HaKadosh Baruch Hu provided us with a mitzvah, and it's in enacting the mitzvah of keeping Pesach in its season that suddenly there's this 13th month, but there's no 13th constellation, correct? There's 12 mazalos, there's 12 constellations, 12 zodiac signs. Is there a magical 13th that shows up whenever we have an Ibr Yor? No. All you have is that the month of Adar is Pisces, right? Is Dagim. And Dagim always means multiplicity. It means to expand. It's expansiveness. Because we never say there's a Dag. The Dag doesn't travel by itself. The Dag travels in a school, right? The Dag travels in a school. It travels, there's never just one fish. They're called Nuneyam. They're so multitudinous, right? If you were to go down into the depths and you see these schools of fish, they could have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of creatures that are in these massive schools of fish that move through the water like a whole, they're like a whole little city of themselves, yeah? That's how they move through the water. They're biyachad, they're together. So Adar, in its name, in its constellation, its zodiac sign, is itself multiplicity because it's always dagim, more and more. Nuneyam. Nuneyam means the multitudinous things of the sea. That's what they're called. In Hebrew, when you have grandchildren, you know, the children are called banim, and grandchildren are called nechadim. And what are great grandchildren called? Ninim. Means little fishies, little fishies. Why? Because by the time you get to generation 4, Bezrat Hashem, hopefully, you have enough multiplication already, enough forward geometric progression that already you're talking about a lot more humans, a lot more people. So they're ninim, like little fish in a school, big group, hopefully. So the so when Haman hit month 13, and he thought, oh, perfect. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu blinding him, right? Because there's no month that was a better month for his pour to fall, for us, because it's a non-month. It doesn't exist. It says the Rabbeinu Ephraim says, when a person is born in Adar, I don't know if any of you are Adar babies, but he says people who are born in Adar, they have a beautiful mazel. Ein ayin hara sholetes b'hem. Ayin hara doesn't have any effect on them. As a question, does it mean only Adar Beis? Does it mean Adar Aleph? It doesn't mean that people can't have difficult lives sometimes, but there's an idea that what if you're from this month is so protected, like the fish that are under the water, they're in a different realm, they live in a different reality. You look at the surface of the water and you think, well, it's nice to visit the seashore, but I'm not moving in, you know. But if we had the capacity to go down under the water and really breathe under the water and like be there for a long time, what's more, it's like a whole hidden world. The world of the fish is the hidden world where it's magnificent and beautiful. Go look at, go find some beautiful videos of what's going on deep under the surface. It's magic. It's magical, right? It's a whole world and it takes up how much of the space? 2/3 to 3/4 of the mass of the surface of the whole planet is the realm of the fishes. And there's a whole universe there that is more wondrous than we can imagine. And that's Adar, is that we get to go and immerse for a little bit and become among the fishes, to go enter into the world of the fishes, that we stop being superficial people and go down into the basement, go down into the cellar, go down below the surface and discover down there, it's not dark and it's not cold and it's not scary. What is it? It's wondrous. It's wondrous. It has a light of its own. It has a beauty of its own. It has a love and a light and a joy of its own. And it's just waiting to be discovered. And so it is with everything. Nisan, the Bnei Yissaschar brings from the Sefer Yetzirah, every month has a letter. And the letter Adar, the letter is Kuf. And the month of Adar, the month of Nisan, the letter is Hey. And they're very similar, A Hey, right, is like this. It's got like a kind of roof over it, and it's got a little foot. And the Kuf has the same roof, wall in the roof, but it goes down. The foot goes down below the line. Now, Kuf is a fraught letter for us because Kuf is Kuf indicates, a Kuf means a monkey, it means an ape. And the Zohar Kodesh says that Adar is to Nisan like Kof b'fnei Adam. Hey is a very holy letter, correct? Hey, there's 2 Heys in God's name. It's a very, very holy letter. Kuf is like a joke. Kuf is a joke. Like a kuf is like a kuf. Like somebody Kof b'fnei Adam in Hebrew is an idiom to mean when you ape somebody, when you're not that thing, but you're trying to pretend to be that thing. Yeah? Monkey see, monkey do. So that's called Adar vis-a-vis Nisan. Ape, to imitate means to imitate, correct. So Adar is not Nisan. Nisan is a hey. It's like, oh, hey, look, Hashem is here. He took us out of Egypt. Everything is beautiful. There's so many miracles. We're going to make a Seder. Everything's fantastic. And Adar is not like that at all. Adar is kakof b'fnei Adam. It's like everything is messed up, and it's all what we say al hapanim. It's all upside down. And we have like this kind of last minute 11th hour escape, right? Which turns out to be via farce, correct? The Megillah itself is often played like when they do a Purim spiel. So classically, the Megillah is played as farce, meaning even at the very end, when it comes to the moment of salvation. What's the moment of salvation where everything just like, now here it's finished. When does it all break? When Haman falls on the bed, correct? So Achashverosh is like, he hates the Jewish people so much that he goes out to the garden when everything is becoming revealed that she's from the Jewish people and that's the guy who's trying to destroy us. And are you going to let this happen? Achashverosh decides, like the Vilna Gaon says, to go out for a breath of air in order to compose himself. He doesn't want to actually be terribly moved by this whole story that Esther is telling him. He goes outside to the garden. The Vilna Gaon says he goes out to see the color green. Out in the garden, it's green. It calms you down. Seeing the color green is tranquilizing, which actually happens to be true. So he goes out to see the green. And then there's Eliyahu Hanavi takes the form of Harvona outside in the garden, and he shows him, he points and he says, you see, that's the eights, that's the thing that Haman, that whole scaffold, that's what he put up to hang Mordechai on. And Achashverosh gets again, comes back in. He's trying to calm himself down. He comes back in, and at that moment, Haman nofel, right? Haman falls and he collapses accidentally on Esther. It's like he's attacking her as if, right? And that's what we call in drama, that's what we call, it's the moment of farce, right? Like if you were going to make a play, and people do it. Classic Purim spiel is like to play up the farcical aspect of this, where the blustery king comes in and he's like, he worked so hard to calm himself down, and then he comes in and then he says, what? You're going to come, and I'm in the house and you're going to attack my wife. Like all this, that's the Megillah that we read, the Holy Megillah. Yeah. So Adar compared to Nisan is kikuf b'fnei Adam, is the kuf as opposed to the hey. Same letter. And it's actually the only 2 letters that we have in all of the Aleph Beis where its parts are disjointed, where the parts that make up the letter are actually in 2 pieces. They're not united. They're not in a single piece. If you go through the whole Aleph Beis, you'll see that all other letters are connected. Its parts are connected. Only the hey and the kuf are disconnected, 2 parts that are separate from each other. And when it comes to the hey of Nisan, it's like, hey, look at this. things that are separate, they become one. And it's all part of Hashem's name. And it's so revealed. It's so beautiful. Comes Adar and Purim. It's not like that at all. It's Kuv. Kuv is like God is making a monkey out of me. Like everything is exactly not the way I want it to be. Like everything is all closed up and down. It's all below the line. I'm living in the cellar. I'm down here in the dark place of myself and in my life where normally light does not penetrate and nothing is happy there. And that place can be made happy. See, Adar is so powerful, such big, expansive joy. Even that place can be made happy. Even the place where a person feels like, here, God is making a monkey out of me. Here, things are not the way they should be. Here, I feel like everything is dead and gone. And actually, that's another meaning of Kuf. Kuf is 100. And we have a whole list in the Mishnah of what things happen at different ages. You know, Ben Chamesh Lemikra, right? At 5, you start to learn. At 5, you start to learn the Torah. And at 13, Ben Shlosh Esrei Lemitzvah. At 13, you have a bar mitzvah. And then, you know, Ben Shmon Esrei Lechuppah. 18, you're supposed to get married, and so on. And it goes up and up and up through the human life. All these Ben Arba'im Labina. When you're 40, you start to get very much more intuitive and understanding about things, and so on and so on. What happens when you finally hit Kuf? So it says Kuf is already like the person is dead and gone from the world. That's what it says. 100 already dead and gone from the world. So the person is so done, even if the person is alive. It's like finished. And Shlomo Melech said, what's Kuf? A person at the age of Kuf, at the age of 100, like either they have so transcended the limitations of this world and its normal limits that they still have clarity of mind, that they still are all together, which is very, very rare. But if they're 100 years old, what are they? Kikov b'fnei Adam. That's what Shlomo Melech said. He said they're like a shadow of a human being, like an imitation of a human being, because they're already so broken. And do we see the person, the human being who's come to such a prodigious age, even if their externality is broken? We don't see them as being inside so full, so full, so full. Of course we do. Because we know that the externality, the kuf on the outside, is just a hay waiting to happen. From Adar, we go to Nisan. From the kuf, we'll pull up and make the low down basement of the kuf as illuminated as the hay. That Adar should be filled with a revealed light of godliness, a revealed light of providence. It can be, just like Nisan is naturally. Okay, that's enough. I'm letting you go. I have a student soon.
Yehudis, I missed how the hay represents Nisan and the kuf represents Adar.
I didn't want to talk too much. I didn't want to talk too much about Nisan, but I'll just tell you, in Sefer Yetzirah, it doesn't explain. It just tells us every month has a letter, and it's part of its dominion. That means to say it's part of its nature that's intrinsic. So the letter that is associated with Adar is Kuf, and the letter that's associated with Nisan is Hey. Now Hey is easier for us to understand its relationship with Nisan, because Hey is twice appears in the Shem Havaya, in Hashem's name. And so it's very big revelations of godliness at a initial level and then at a finalized level. That's Hey. And it makes sense for Nisan. Nisan is our month of revelations, is the month of miracles, correct? Beginning to end. It's such a big month. Now, Adar is the preliminary to that, but it's strange because it comes, chronologically in the course of the year, it feels like it's right before Nisan. But in a certain way, it's the month that's furthest away from Nisan, right? Like if you're thinking of it cyclically, it's the furthest from Nisan, but it is preparatory to the Nisan that is to come, correct? It's month 12 that's going to turn into a new cycle, month 1. So that's called the bottom. It's like you've come to the bottom of the year as opposed to the head of the year. Hey is head of the year, Nisan. Everything's very clear. Kulanu chachamim, kulanu nevonim, kulanu yodim esatayr. We're going to say it Leila Seder. We all know exactly what we need to know. We feel Hashem is with us. We're reading the Haggadah, and everything is very, very miracles, and Hashem is with us. Adar is exactly, go all the way around the clock of the year, the furthest moment from that, but at the same time, even though it's the furthest from the last Nisan, it's the closest to the Nisan to come. So it's also considered to be preparatory. And in that sense, I'm going from, it's like the relationship between Elul and Tishrei, right? Elul, you're busy cleaning up all the mess of the year, right? You have a whole year that you have to deal with. But it's the end of the year before that's going to flip over into the preparation for the year to come. So it's closest to Tishrei, and it's both furthest and closest to Tishrei at the same time. Same thing with Adar and Nisan, both furthest and closest. From the last year, it's the ebbing of the year, from the Nisan that was, but from the one that's to come, it's the most natural progression. Kikof b'fnei Adam. First, I have to start from the basement and expand the joy in even the places that are difficult for me. And then soon will be revealed joy. I do have to go, but I'll tell you one last thing. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught a very interesting teaching. It's a very brief teaching. He said, it used to be that kol haschalos hayu me Pesach, that all spiritual beginnings were from Pesach. That means to say, Zecher L'Yetzias Mitzrayim. We say in Kiddush that this is in memory of a commemoration of the Exodus, the beginning point of everything, right? So it's the beginning point for Shabbos, for all the festivals, for Tefillin, for so much. It's the beginning point. Exodus, the beginning. And Rabbi Nachman said, it's true that always Pesach was the beginning point. However, Achshav, he says, now Hatchalot Mipurim. Now he didn't even finish the sentence. He only said V'achshav, and now, meaning at this latter time of history, all the beginnings, the implication was all the beginnings come from Purim. Now, what does it mean by all the beginnings? It means we're already at such an advanced state of such an advanced point of exile, that the emphasis really needs to be on the expansion of Simcha down into the lower places. This is really where we have a lot of work to do. Because the grand revelations that were before, that were in the past, that were always the beginning point, you sort of have to be a person who's ready for them. You have to be in a state of preparation and you have to already be a viable enterprise to be able to receive that light. It's a very big light that day. So instead, we focus now, at this point, we make a big focus on actually the work of Simcha itself, which used to not be considered the place where you had to put so much work. Who said you have to put so much work in Simcha? Now we all know that you have to. If a person is not happy, they're going to be able to keep Shabbos. If a person is not happy, meaning keep Shabbos the way it should be kept. If a person is not happy, they can do the mitzvot the way they need to be done? No. The happiness is like the beginning of our being a person, the beginning of our having something to work with, the raw material to work with, so that all of the Pesach that will be joyous. And I'm letting you go. I feel bad for keeping you, but just because it's already, I can't help it. My daughter, she shouldn't be well. She's finishing up her schooling now, but when she got married, she didn't know exactly what she wanted to do. So while she was deciding what she wanted to study, she had a lot of work to make up. So she said, you know what? She had been working in a school for special children. And she said, I'm going to drop that work because it's really very taxing. I'm going to go get a job in the makolet, like to sit and be the checkout. She was married already, and she even had a baby by then. And she said, I'm going to go be the checkout girl, and I'll study math, because her entry into her academic program, she had to catch up on a lot of advanced math. So she said, instead, what do people do when they sit, the workers, when there's no customers, they play with their telephones. She said, I'll do math problems. Fine. So she sat for a year and worked in the makolet while she was doing all her preparation to go to school. And she was working in one of the religious neighborhoods here in Yerushalayim near her house. And when they came for Pesach that year to stay for Yantiv, so she said to me, Mama, I really want to thank you. I said, why? So she said, I really want to thank you because I just spent the last several weeks working in the makolet Erev Pesach. I said, and I'm sorry that you had to go through that, but okay. So she said, Mama, I want you to know, I have spent the last several weeks seeing day in and day out, from early morning until late at night, women coming in and complaining about preparing for Pesach. just an endless parade of all these wonderful frum women who are just like schmattered out and upset about what they have to do to clean for Pesach. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, it's so terrible. And I said, why are you thanking me? What are you thanking me for? So she said, I never, I mean, you also made Pesach. We also had to make Pesach every year. I never heard you say once, Oy vavoy Pesach. Never. I was like, yeah, why would I say that? You know, it's Pesach. Pesach is coming. You know, like, yes, we have a lot to do, but, you know, everyone understands what I mean. It's like to be able to bring in the mitzvah, whatever it is, what has to be done before you can actually bring in the mitzvah the way you need to bring it in? That's Purim. Happy, happy Adar. Happy, happy Purim. Okay? Now I'm really going.
Yehudis, can I ask one quickie, quick?
Yes.
One practical thing that we could take for Zion Adar as we're approaching it tonight, some attitude, some that we're walking in, a tool, a nugget that we walk into Zion Adar with a, you know, just one piece of, you know, I can't see you. I don't know where you went. I don't know if you could see me, but just one note, because it went on I couldn't see it. Just one tiny thought, like a thought. It just simcha as we walk into Zion Adar. What is the thing that we're holding on to in this power? And because you hear it, what is that one thing?
Okay, so I'll just tell you quickly. The power of Moshe Rabbeinu is that, is having awareness, living awareness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And there's different ways to leave bits of dat in the world. You know, one of the main objectives of living, of being alive in this world, and this was Moshe Rabbeinu's job. We're still calling him 3,500 years later. We still call him Moshe, our teacher, correct?
Okay.
So he had such dat, he had such big dat, that he was able to leave so much of his own dat into the world, of his awareness of Hashem, that we're still working with it 3,500 years later. Now, it's very, very important to share dat with other people. That means that when you have holy awareness, when you have a grasp of something in Kedusha, of a connection to Hashem, that you share it. You share it with your children, you share it with your spouse, you share it with your friends, you share it with the people in your circle of influence. That's called carrying out the objective of Moshe Rabbeinu in the world in which you are. So this is something that everybody can do. Everybody has inside of them what's called the Nekuda of Moshe. It says in every Jew, there's a Moshe Rabbeinu, a spark of Moshe that exerts itself. And when you're capable of sharing that, of your awareness of Hashem in a down-to-earth real way with other people, that's called being Moshe. So I wish everybody should have a good, happy, healthy Zion Adar, and continue to do the avodah, the beautiful, beautiful work of continuing the work of Moshe Rabbeinu here in this world.
Thank you. That was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you,
so much.
thank you,
Yehudis.
Yehudis.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Oh, I have
so
to go. I have
much.
a feeling I should have gone
Very
already.
Aviva. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody
you,
have a
Barry.
beautiful,
Thank
beautiful
you, it's
Purim.
gorgeous. Thank you, Aviva.